welcome to the New Earth podcast, which will guide you towards awakening and the embodiment of your highest self through holistic living advice, science, yoga, personal experiences, and expert guests. Let's grow together and build a new Earth. I'm Nancy Crupi. I'm a scientist and I have a PhD in biology and 15 years of international scientific research experience in fields from inflammation to aging, neurobiology, nutrition, metabolic disorders, and much more. I'm also a Kundalini Awakened spiritual teacher, healer, and coach, and I practice and teach Kundalini Tantra.
And I'm Robie Newman-Paris. I'm a biologist with experience in neuroscience, and I've studied the ancient yogic sciences as well as other Eastern philosophies with gurus and yogis while spending a year and a half in India and in Bali. I now teach Kriya Yoga, breathwork, and meditation and help guide people in their spiritual development.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Welcome
everybody.
back to another episode of the New Earth podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing the placebo effect and how it relates to awakening. But before we jump into things, we have a little bit of something we want to share with you guys, Nancy, if you want to demonstrate what you got there.
Yes, because last time we talked about, in the previous episode with Shafali, we talked about skincare and really kind of using different kinds of rituals to take care of ourselves in a deeper way, also of our exteriors, not just like the border of our body, in a way that is deeper than just taking care of our, like applying a lotion or a moisture to our skin. And this time I would like to show you guys, if you're watching the video, you're going to see a Jade roller here and a gua sha. These are two quartz-made instruments that you can find anywhere, and we're gonna put a link to one of these kits that you can find on Amazon. And these are really, really useful. We described it also in the episode in which we talked with Emily Rooks, and she described the different movements that are useful to drain our skin and to deep up our eyes. And you can use the gua sha in so many different ways, like this. Like the idea is to really use it to deep up your eyes, and I use it every night, especially, and every morning whenever I feel like I need to deep up my eyes. And it's also kind of cold because it's a stone, right? And so you can also put it in the freezer if you like, but you don't really need to because it's usually cold already. And what you want to do is really to use it to like deep up your eyes like this and like this, like make these movements, and then really drain all the fluids down, right? Down your neck, through your face. And how you, like, this can be used in so many different ways because it's really designed to have a shape to like drain everything. It's really designed in such a very smart way. And these are very, very ancient tools that have been used since a long, long time. And they're very useful to depuff. Instead of using lotions that you think are going to depuff your eyes, what you really need is to drain the fluids that are in excess. And especially when we sleep, we tend to, a lot of fluids flow in our face and accumulate in our face. And so because our lymphatic system doesn't really have any way of draining other than temperature, and this is cold, right? So cold temperature helps you drain fluids and pressure. And so what you are doing with these tools is basically to apply pressure and cold so that your lymphatic system in your face can drain away toxins from your face, which prevent acne and other kinds of issues, but also really give you a much, much better look, and it prevents wrinkles too, because if your eyes are puffed, your face is puffed, that creates these, expression wrinkles, facial wrinkles that are due to all of these expressions we constantly have that kind of like create these wrinkles that ultimately become permanent. So great job to who invented this. I don't even know. We should make maybe an episode on who invented all of these tools one day. But for now, we're gonna have a link in the description of the episode that you guys can get your own. And then let's start talking about the placebo effect.
Yeah.
Yes. And interestingly enough, actually, I have a thesis on the placebo effect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to share a little bit about like just a simple definition for people that aren't, I think most people are familiar, but we can go into a little more details and give people that background, since it seems like it's right in your area of expertise. I'd love to hear your share on it.
Yes. So I feel like we should start in a way that I don't particularly prefer, in the sense that it sounds very scientific, but it's really anti-placebo in a sense. So the placebo itself, the name of placebo is really related to pharmaceuticals, in the sense that basically what pharmaceutical companies and doctors and clinicians and the whole scientific and industry in general, Western healthcare system calls placebo is the fact that when you get a drug, when someone gets basically given a drug or whatever type of intervention, then the effect that you have if you're given a pill that doesn't contain any active compound, but you think you're getting the real drug, if you still have an effect, a positive effect on your health, which is the effect you think the drug is going to give you, that is called placebo effect, which is almost kind of like a negative thing in the Western healthcare because it's something that is considered a confounding factor in clinical studies. Because basically what they try to do in clinical studies is to minimize the placebo effect, because when they have to these studies are called, for example, placebo-controlled. Placebo-controlled studies are studies in which, for example, let's say we are part of this study, I and Robbie are part of this study, and we go to the study personnel and they tell us, okay, you're going to get the real pill and you're going to get the real pill too. But one of us has gotten a fake pill. So what they're trying to see, is whether the effect of just thinking, knowing the expectations of healing are lower than the actual healing, right? Because if the placebo effect is the same as the effect of the actual pill, then that means that that pill doesn't have any actual effect, because that's just the self-healing capability of our body. And so these are called placebo-controlled studies, which are supposed to be the norm, or however are really a minority in the end. But this is the placebo. The placebo is when our expectations make us heal despite we haven't actually received any medicine. And the reason why I said that, the reason why I'm saying that I don't like starting like this is because this is the Western definition of something that is really self-healing, which is almost considered a bother by the conscious healthcare system, in the sense that it's a confounding factor. And instead, this is really the self-healing capability of our body. And if we will make studies to boost the placebo effect through positive affirmations or to different kinds of ways, we will actually see that the placebo effect is the same as most drugs effect. And so there, most of the times it's really like mostly the capability of people of healing that allows them to heal, not the actual pill itself. And in fact, in a lot of studies, even the placebo-controlled studies, the actual study population, which is the people that are enrolled in the study, are people that are kind of healthy in a sense, healthy or in a range that still has the hope of healing. Like studies tend to exclude people that are 65 years or older, which means there are people that already kind of like lost hope sometimes, or like they already kind of surrender to the idea that maybe they're about to die. And so if people that get pills in these placebo-controlled studies will be people who don't have hope at all, maybe they will find that there is no effect at all either, because there is still a lot of placebo effect, even if they're trying to minimize it. So this is just a general idea of what Western healthcare, Western science thinks and frames, how they frame the placebo effect. But the placebo effect, and we're going to be talking about it today, it's way deeper than that. It goes much, much deeper than that. And it's something that actually we should start using to our advantage.
Right.
And so let's give the word to Robbie. What do you have? What's your experience with self-healing and placebo effect in your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting thing. When you look at things from different perspectives, you're going to get completely different viewpoints. And I also come from the Western scientific background. I also, worked in some biotech pharmaceutical companies. And it's really interesting looking at those studies and seeing, how much they try to control all the variables, but still how little they're actually able to control all the variables. Because, when it comes down to it, every person has so many different factors in their life. And if you were to make a list of all of them and say, okay, all these people have to be the same, it would be impossible to find people for your study because people are inherently different. So it's really interesting to look at things like that. But in terms of the more like yogic perspective on the placebo effect, like what I've learned from my studies and from the readings that I've done, really it goes down to the power of the mind. And this is something that we've talked about before, but is also really, really important to understand. Our mind has power to control our physical reality, especially the reality that exists within inside our physical body. This is where it has the most jurisdiction, you could say. But when you employ what you would call the placebo effect, what Nancy said is like using affirmations, using the power of your mind to dictate the physical state of your mind. And, it's really, really important for many different things. It doesn't matter even if it's like something that's directly related to self-healing. It can also be something that's more generalized, like, oh, I want to be healthier, but I'm not like I'm in an unhealthy state right now, but I want to be even healthier. I want to have this particular outcome happen to me in my body. Like I want to lose this percentage of body fat. I want to, get this much muscle. I want to be able to, do this much exercise without breathing that deeply. There's a lot of different ways you can employ it, but really the power of the mind that if you truly believe in it in a very, very deep way, and this is a way where, you're not having doubts about it. You're really trying with all of your might, with all of your willpower to say, this is my reality. And that's where affirmations can come in. That's where meditation comes in. You can actually physically change that reality. And that's, again, where I think the placebo effect is coming from. And another really interesting thing is that it doesn't even necessarily have to come from your own mind. They've done particular experiments where they've had, someone, let's say, that has cancer or another like very incurable disease, something that's, would be considered terminal in a Western medical sense, where this person, maybe they have 6 months, a year, 2 years left to live, but that the disease course is going to take them to death. They've done experiments where they've put them in the middle of a circle of these are really advanced meditators. These are like people that have been monks for 20 or 30 years. And the monks sit and they focus their minds, they focus their intentions on that person. And basically, they just visualize this person being healthy. They say in their minds with such power, because these people have very focused mind. They have the ability to block out all thoughts that are going to be, contradictory to what the aim of the meditation is, because that's what they've been practicing for the better part of their life. And they're able to actually affect the physical body of the person in the middle of the circle without even having that person in the middle doing any of the meditation, which is really incredible. They're actually able to, and again, we'd have to find the exact experiments where this is done, but they're actually able to reduce the tumor size, or in some cases I think even cause the person to go into remission, where just because of the power of their minds, they're actually able to shape the physical world in a way that's outside of their body. And that's something that's kind of goes beyond the Western view of what the placebo effect actually is, but is something that's well within the realm of possibilities when you consider the power of the mind that we have and the power that you can use that mind to shape the world around you, not just inside of you. But yeah, from my own personal experience, I think the most placebo effect, the kind of most mental power I've exerted is controlling my own mind and also controlling my energy, because I've noticed that if I focus really deeply on an area that's maybe sick, like let's say I have a cold and I'm really having a lot of dripping in my throat, like I feel, it's very uncomfortable, maybe scratching. If I focus a lot of energy in this part of my body, and especially if I focus on, maybe one modality you can use is like focusing healing light energy into my throat, or even if it's just because of my background using energy, moving energy in my body, I can try to like connect with the energy here and start to move it somewhere else where it can be released. So usually the best way is through the mouth. That's a really big way to release energy. So if I kind of visualize, and I use my breath with this as well, so it's really important. The breath is a very powerful tool when you're doing this kind of energy work. So take a deep breath in, feel like the energy flowing to the throat. And as you exhale, you feel all of the kind of stuck energy, the stagnant energy, which is behind, again, this state of illness or sickness that I'm experiencing. I experience that coming out of my throat.
Now that you're saying it,
out of my mouth. Yeah.
That you're saying it, kind of like you're inducing me to do the same thing. Like I felt it too, which is again the power of just synchronizing. Not just the placebo effect does not necessarily come from yourself. It can come from people who say things and then affect you. And he's in my aura right now. I thought that's crazy. Like I had the feeling of having to unlock something. Yeah, I do the same. I love it. I do exactly the same.
And it's worked for me, and I'm sure it worked for you too. It's
incredible. Yeah. And I started doing it, I think, with my throat as well. I feel like the throat is the main part where most people start from.
I do my stomach a lot also.
I think I started from, in general, painful parts of my body. Mm-hmm. Like whenever I felt pain, I started like really focusing my attention to that area and just imagine this like light or warm that heals my body in that part. And definitely immediately the pain goes away. It's really very interesting how it works, because ultimately we don't feel the pain in our body, we feel the pain in our brain, right? We don't realize that all of our perception, the entirety of our perceptions, or I think the entirety, it's really in our brain, in the sense that our brain processes all these stimuli that we receive from neurons and from all the cells from all our organs, and it sends them through the neurons to our brain, right? And so it's the brain that transforms that stimulus into pain, into telling us this part is giving you pain. So that pain is really a stimulus, a translation of a stimulus that really means there's something wrong there. You need to heal. And so that pain is really just something that tells our body you need to do something. It's just, it makes us feel uncomfortable so that we stop and we decide to heal. But there's really no pain in the place where we're having injury or wounds. It's just there's something going on. There's an inflammation or infection or maybe a fracture or something like that is maybe even just an energy blockage that gives us, it needs to be healed. And so our brain transforms it into pain so that it tells us, look, this is an alarm. It's telling you there's something you need to do there. So if you then focus on that part and you try to heal and to tell to that part of your body, it's all going to be fine, it's all right, try to relax, try to heal, your body really understands it. Because as much as our brain transforms and translates messages from our body into pain, we can do the same with our thoughts. And so we can translate those things into healing, doing the same thing. And in fact, the placebo effect is not just energy, it's actually made of biochemicals. Because what the placebo effect does from biological standpoint is it actually activates the opioid system, our endogenous opioids in our body. And so by doing that, opioids are basically molecules that lower pain, and so lower pain and suppress inflammation in a sense, or like basically heal you in a sense. And so opioids are really necessary, especially for pain relief. And so that's what the placebo effect really really activates the inner opioid system of the brain, and it activates the part of the cortex, which is the part where we actually are more relaxed, more clear-minded, and we can actually have more control over our body. And the placebo effect also works through the so-called autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system is the part of the nervous system that controls the heart rate, for example. So the heart rate, and also it drains our lymphatic system as well. So it's all those involuntary parts of our body, in a sense, are really the autonomic nervous system. So what is voluntary, what is involuntary? I feel like it's important to make this explanation, to give this explanation right now. So our body is really perfect, and so it has buttons that you can press, and it has certain things that you cannot directly affect, but you can affect indirectly. So the things that you can affect directly are the voluntary things. Voluntary things are like our muscles. We can move, right? Which means that we can tell our brain, through our brain, we can decide how to move our body, right? And our brain is also voluntary, or at least for most part. And so we can decide what to think about, and we can move our muscle. I'm being able to speak right now because the muscles on our face are voluntary. However, there are certain parts of our body that are not voluntary, such as the heart. So the heart is not a voluntary muscle, as much as the vessels. The vessels also can contract, but the muscles that surround the bigger vessels are actually involuntary. And so there are a lot of other involuntary muscles, such as also our intestine. Our intestine is also surrounded by muscles that contract, because for us to have the bowel movements, the whole intestine needs to contract, and the stomach and all the sphincters need to contract and open and close at the right time, and including also our lungs. So all of our inner organs really are surrounded in some way by these involuntary muscles, which means that we cannot really move them voluntarily. However, our body is made in a way that those things are really we can affect them by doing voluntary things, such as the gua sha and the Jade roller, right? We can move our muscles, which is voluntary. We can decide to train our face. And even if we cannot directly affect our voluntary or involuntary muscles in our lymphatic system, we can still push, right? And use our hands and our voluntary muscles to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's really interesting also because that's also something that you can start to do when you do practice of yoga. You're also, all of these asanas that we're doing and all the breathing techniques, a lot of them are what the purpose is. They're massaging, your inner organs. Like when you do something like Kapalabhati, which, for example, to explain it to you guys, it's like a rhythmic pumping of the belly when you exhale. So you exhale with force through the nose. What you're doing there is actually Kapalabhati is not just a breathing technique. It's also what's called a Shat Karma or Shat Kriya, which basically means it's a cleansing technique. So this has actually been employed in the ancient yogic system as a way to internally cleanse your body through just the movement of your breath and your diaphragm, which is really interesting. You're actually able to, the same way you're able to flush lymphatic fluid that's been built up. You're able to energy as well,
energy a lot,
but also like physical things inside of your digestive tract. You're like helping moving things along. It's really powerful for that, and it's really interesting also to think about how all of these things building up can do that exact same thing where we're able to interact with these areas of our subconscious that are expressed in our body through the systems that we don't control by using our mind also. Whereas you say when you do a meditation, when you do deep breathing and like a breathwork activity or exercise, you're actually able to slow down your heart rate because you're bringing your mind into the right mental state where now your heart rate gets slower, your pulse goes down, you start breathing more slowly. And honestly, the breath, the lungs is one of the best ways to do this because it's the one thing that connects the two systems together because you have control over your breath. If you say, I'm going to breathe really fast, you can do that. But then if you're completely busy doing another task and you let go of the control of your breath, you're going to keep breathing no matter what. So it's really the link between the two systems. And that is how it becomes such a powerful tool to impact your autonomic nervous system, because when you're using that breath as a tool, you're able to kind of give cues to your subconscious mind and that system in your body to really train it to react in a certain way and to change it. Because when you're in a reactive state, a lot of these things they come out of your control. When you're in fight or flight, your heart rate goes up, you start sweating, all of these things that happen out of your control. And instead you take the control back through your breath, through your mental state, then you start being able to bring yourself out of that mental state and you see the physiological changes that happen as well when you exit that state, and you're able to interact with that part of your body, that system that supposedly we don't have any control over.
Oh, we do, as you're saying, in the sense that this is exactly the breath connects the heart, right? Because next to the heartbeat, because the heartbeat cannot be affected voluntarily, but everything in our body is really an equation. And if you push on one side, something moves on the other side, even if you don't have direct access to that thing. It's an equation. So once you change a term of an equation, something on the other side changes. And so same thing with the breath and the heartbeat. So when we're in fight or flight mode, our heartbeat goes faster and our breath goes faster as well, right? We're like panting, like, right? But then if you slow down your breath, you also slow down your heart rate and you slow down your mind and you turn off the fight or flight mode. So it's a whole cascade of events. As much as the cascade can affect one thing after the other, until it also affects things that are usually voluntary, such as muscle. We can have spasms or we can freeze when we are in fight or flight mode, or we can decide to really move very fast when we are in fight or flight mode. And so as much as the autonomic nervous system and the fight or flight mode can ultimately turn into effects that are also on our voluntary things, we can also use our voluntary parts of our body to affect this cascade backward. And that's really when the real placebo effect comes in. And that's why this is the real placebo effect, in the sense that the definition we gave at the beginning is really what Western medicine and Western science think about the placebo effect. The reality is that the placebo effect is really self-healing. It's our capability of understanding the leverage we have on our body and our well-being and the buttons we need to press for us to do certain things. And so the placebo effect in general can involve all different things, can involve anti-inflammatory chemicals released in our blood, can involve the lowering of cortisol in our blood, because cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which then on itself causes a lot of downstream effects, like a lot of cascade effects that lead to stress and to illnesses and to cancer and to a lot of different things. If we lower our breath, if we lower our heartbeat, if we get out of the fight or flight mode, thanks to these voluntary buttons we have and we can always tap into, then we also lower our cortisol. And in the same way, we can modulate our immune system, because, and this is important also to, I think, to make this, give this some information about the fight or flight mode. So the fight or flight mode is a modality in which once you are in it, then your whole body starts responding in a completely different way. And it's almost out of your control, because the fight or flight modality is basically a way in which it's really, so the main part of the brain that controls the fight or flight mode is called the amygdala. So the amygdala, imagine the amygdala as a chip, in a sense, beyond conspiracy theories about us having a chip in our brain. But imagine the amygdala like a chip. It's a small part of the brain that has played all the possible chess games throughout history, throughout evolution. And it knows all the answers that keep you alive or make you die. And so that's the amygdala. So when the fight or flight mode turns on, the amygdala starts taking over and it starts controlling our autonomic nervous system, and as well all the other voluntary organs as well, as in a cascade, right? And because of that, we stop having control, because the amygdala knows better than us and faster than us what to do to keep us alive. So the problem is that in today's life, we don't have the same kind of dangers. We are not really running away from a predator. I mean, sometimes we do, really, like in our society as well, but it's not as much as living in a savanna, right, in which you actually have to run away in a matter of seconds. We live in a world in which it will be much, much better being able to more clearly think and strategize whenever we find ourselves in trouble, right? And so having that kind of very fast decision making that is based on very ancient history, evolutive history, it's kind of, it impairs our capability of surviving in our world. And so what this is to say that we have these two modalities constantly. The fight or flight mode, in which we don't really have control and our entire body is in this situation in which basically we are really meant to fight. And when you're meant to fight or to resist in some way to whatever trouble you're in for you to survive, you don't have the clear mind, nor you're supposed to clearly think, so that your amygdala can do whatever you need to do to survive, which means that you can't dedicate time to love. You can't dedicate time to having good bowel movements. You can't dedicate time and resources to have a good immune system. You can't dedicate your time to have a good skin. You can't really heal because you have to survive, right? And so this is why the placebo effect comes into play, and it's so important, because the placebo effect is basically us getting back to our cortex and really trying to heal our body, tapping into all of these modalities and consciously understanding how to use everything in our body to heal and to tell our body everything is going to be okay, have faith, we're all going to be all right, so that we get out of that modality in which we don't have control and our brain thinks that we don't have resources to dedicate to heal ourselves and to love ourselves. And by doing that, obviously we tend to prioritize things that are more for survival and not things that are more for long-term, for like short-term survival instead of long-term.
Surviving versus thriving.
Yes, exactly. And so basically the placebo effect is really tapping into the thriving mode and understanding, yes, I need to survive, but this is a long-term thing. I can't always constantly be in this survival mode in which ultimately I'm not being healthy, because that will lead me, and this is what the amygdala doesn't know and can't possibly understand, that in the long term, having this amygdala turned on all the time, this fight or flight modality turned on constantly, in the long term, that leads us to die. But that is such a long term that the amygdala can't record it in its chessboard, and it can't record it in its memory to understand, if am always on, I'm actually leading my body to die, right?
Right.
And so we have to understand it consciously, and we need to get to a point where we understand that the placebo effect is us telling our body everything is going to be fine, you are going to be fine, let's decide how to heal and what kind of things I need to use, what kind of buttons I need to push to make my body have proper body movements or have proper heart rate or do all the things I need to do to thrive.
Right, because all of these states of stress that when we're in fight or flight, they're actually degrading our body very fast because it's the type of situation where it's I'm gonna either fight or run away or I'm gonna die. So your body is prioritizing all of its energy towards this, which means that, exactly what you're saying, all of the energy that would be digesting your food is gone. And now your food is not being digested as well. All of the energy that was going into like healing from like, let's say even a physical wound or healing from an infection, that energy is going to go away. It's going to go into your skeletal muscles so that you can run away really fast or you can fight back against whatever is attacking you. So all of that energy that normally when it's in balance, you have some energy in your muscles, your voluntary action. You have a lot of energy digesting your food. I think it's around 50% of your energy is actually around, and energy in this case is measured by blood flow, is actually around your digestive system whenever you're in the process of digesting your food. And when you go into fight or flight, that obviously changes. So then when you're trying to get nutrients and eat a healthy diet, but you're still in fight or flight all the time, you're not actually getting those nutrients. You might be eating all the right things, you might be avoiding all of the toxic unhealthy foods, but you're still getting only like 30 to 50% of the nutrients from that food because your body is not able to digest and absorb them as well because you're not allowing it the time and the space to really get what it needs from it. Because there's another interesting way to combine is fight or flight and rest and digest. It's another way that kind of science can break apart those two different states of mind, fight or flight versus, and again, this also relates to the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic nervous system. And these are the way that these two are distinguished between. So it's really important. And that's where, again, meditation, breathwork comes into play. When you notice yourself getting into that fight or flight, it really even, you can meditate on the food digesting in your stomach. You bring your awareness back there. It's going to, wherever your awareness goes, that's where the energy in your body goes. And it relates to the physiological systems as well. So if you have something that's happening here, let's say you really need, you need nutrients, you're feeling nutrient deficient, maybe you're starting to crave certain foods and you just ate some of those foods and you really need to absorb it, but you're in a stressful work meeting and you're not being able to focus on that. Take a moment, take a couple of deep breaths and really ground into the energy of your stomach and into the energy of your digestive system and give it the reaffirmation that it is valuable and is important and it is loved in your body. Because again, that love is like, it's almost like an energetic currency for your body. It is telling your body, this is worthwhile putting energy and effort into. When you bring your awareness there, when you bring that positive intention there, you're giving your body a ticket basically to invest more into that rather than saying, okay, I'm going to just focus on those rapid, fast, shallow breaths that I'm having, or the racing, anxious thoughts in my mind. That's going to take more energy away from that system that really needs the help. So it's really about, again, where you focus, and it's the meditation is really, really important for these things because we have to give all of our body love because it's a system that is in balance, is in homeostasis only when all of the parts are getting the right amount of that awareness, that attention. And again, when we're in fight or flight, we're really prioritizing things that, for the dangerous situations are going to save your life, but for the everyday life situations are not going to lead you to homeostasis. And they're actually going to weaken your immune system. They're going to make you more susceptible to disease when you're in that state of fight or flight. So that maybe you have a really stressful work week and then you start to notice like, oftentimes when I'm really stressed at work for several days in a row, I end up getting a cold. And it's really interesting because it's two things. It's both your body being weak and more susceptible to that microbial infraction that's coming into your body, but it's also your body saying, look, I need a break. I need to focus on getting healthy and restoring myself. So it's going to put you in a state where you need to rest. Yeah. The decision is taken out of your hands and you're put in a place where, okay, I need to lie in bed for 2 days because I'm physically weak. And that infection, in that sense, the infection is almost like nature telling you, okay, it's time to reset. It's time to come back to that state of homeostasis. And because you're not listening to the other cues that are a little bit more subtle, it's going to give you this more harsh intervention. And it's another interesting thing also that's related to this is that, all of this loving energy and awareness you can also get from external sources, especially nature. So it's another really good way to kind of use that placebo effect to heal your body. When you go out, especially from the sun, when the sun and being in plants, go sit in your yard, go sit in the park. And if you have, let's say, a chest cold, you're coughing a lot, open up your shirt so that your chest is exposed to the direct sunlight and do a meditation where you feel the sun touching your skin. You feel that loving energy from the sun, that powerful healing light is absorbing through your skin into your body. And you might notice that you might start feeling better right away, or maybe you wake up the next day and you feel a lot better. But this power can be easily harnessed to multiply the effects of this, meditation-based placebo effect that we're getting. And again, this placebo effect is just the conscious direction of our awareness and the conscious setting of our expectations. And that's another thing that's also really valuable. Before I get into that, is there anything you want to add about nature and sunlight?
Oh, not only that, a lot of things that could be in the sense that potentially there's so much to say.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we talked about also ultimately using anything. We can transmute any energy we receive from the sun, from food, from movies, even from anything, positive affirmations, books. We can transmute anything to boost our placebo effect. And maybe we should dedicate a specific topic on this right after, like to what kind of things we can use to boost our placebo effect. Let's talk about this later. In the meantime, I feel like the main thing to say for me is this fact of giving love to your body, giving love to giving attention. I feel like we haven't understood what really giving attention means. So our universe, and I tend to speak in physical terms always because that's the only thing we have really. It's physics, and everything else is like a derivative of physics ultimately. And so what is actually happening in our universe and on our planet is that we are expanding. So we're expanding constantly. And because of that, what we perceive as time doesn't really exist. It's a creation of our mind. What is actually happening is that the universe is this huge ball that keeps expanding. Because it expands and it's not still and it's expanding, the present one is different from the present two. So in a second, the present is going to be different from a second ago because the universe is not still, but it's dynamic and it's constantly expanding. And that's how we grow, right? We grow all the time. But this happens in waves. And so we grow and then we die and then someone else is born, then we die, etc. Right? But ultimately, in time, we have become 8 billion people on this planet. So we are expanding, right? We're in a phase of expansion, or probably we're peaking right now and now we're going down. But we have been in a phase of expansion on this planet alone, and the universe on its own is still expanding, right? So this means that time is really the only thing you can give, the only form of love we have is time. Because what is time? The time is you deciding consciously what you want to expand in the next present. And so if you give time to fear is going to grow in the next present because you're giving time to fear, you're watering it. And if you give time to love is going to grow. If you give time to healing is going to grow. And so really the only currency we have is time. And so the only currency you have is time is the only real form of love, right? And so this is why, if you decide, if you're like, oh, I'm getting an indigestion because of this meeting that is very stressful for me. And then you're like, okay, let's stop. Let's tell my body that everything is going to be all right, that I really care about it, that this process is important for me, and that it has the right to dedicate its own time to its own digestion. When you do that, what you're actually doing is you're dedicating time to digest. You're focusing on your digestion instead of trying to take resources away from it. And so what resources are really what you're investing for the next present. So if you invest in your meeting is going to grow in the next present. But if you have a limited amount of attention you can give and resources you can give, and you give it all to your meeting in the meantime that you're trying to digest, then your digestion is not going to grow. And so you're going to have an indigestion, right? So this is how the universe works. So whatever you dedicate time to is what is going to grow. So if you dedicate time to healing, you're going to heal. If you take away resources from healing because you're distracted, then you think you can have different priorities, then you're just something else is gonna grow. And what grows in our body is the side effects of the fact that we are not really dedicating attention to it. And not only that, but when we eat, and I help people to cleanses, like liver and gallbladder cleanses, for example, because what we don't realize is that whatever we eat at any given time, we charge it with the energy that we have in that time. So if you're eating before a meeting and you're very nervous, you're very anxious, and you're very afraid that the meeting is going to go badly, then you're charging with all that energy the food that you're eating. Then that food goes in your stomach, goes in your intestine, and then it goes in your blood, and it goes in your liver. In your liver, it gets filtered, and some of that food is not going to be able to really pass through your liver, and it's going to become debris. And every time you eat, a little bit of these debris accumulate. And ultimately, you're going to find yourself with a lot of liver stones and gallbladder stones that are charged with all this energy that you have ingested and that you have charged and loaded your food with. And so this is why it's also important to, like, we pray before, like, while we're eating, like dedicating attention to food and really being present when you're eating instead of just shoveling food in your mouth. Because it's not just about what food you eat, but what kind of energy are you actually charging your food with, like loading your food with? So I think these are the two main things that I wanted to
definitely. And yeah, it's really, there's a couple of really important things, and this is coming from like the spiritual traditions, where you don't eat food when you're in a negative state of mind. And you just said that it's so important, because you're actually consuming the energy, you're reinforcing that energy. You're saying, I'm feeding this energy with the food. It's like there's a Native American saying that there's two wolves inside of you at all times. There's, the wolf that's like, almost like the angel on one shoulder, or the wolf that's the devil on the other shoulder. And which wolf survives is the one that you feed. And we do that very physically too. It's through our awareness, but through food especially, because food has a very sacred role in our body system. It's how we're actually recharging our physical form. It's how we're able to exist in this world and to sustain ourselves. So when you put that negative energy in food, just by being in a negative state of mind, you're reinforcing that negative state in your mind because you're feeding it energy. And it's also important when you sleep is another important thing. Before you go to sleep, it's really important that you try to clear yourself from any negative expressions of emotions, because when you sleep, you go into the more unconscious, subconscious realms, and those energies can be amplified because you're not able to consciously bring yourself out of them. And in some cases, they can be processed if they're things that like you put a stop on before you go to sleep, and they can be processed in a beneficial way. But if you go to bed and you're really in a negative state of mind, number one, you're not going to get deep rest. And number two, you might amplify those negative emotions. And through that like restless night you're going to wake up the next morning, you're going to be really groggy, you're going to be not in a positive state of mind, and it's going to redouble the effects of this action that you started the night before. And what you're saying before also is feeding into exactly the next subject that I wanted to touch on, which is manifestation. Because manifestation, again, is also using this idea of the placebo effect, is using these ideas of affirmations. And the true way to manifest, and this is the way that actually brings you results. You can say a lot of different ways that people have set out to manifest, but the key in manifestation, there's many methods that can work, but the key is that you internally become in the state as if you already have the thing you already want to manifest. Let's say, for example, I want to buy a new car, and there's one particular car that I really want to buy. And if I have this deep desire inside of me, a lot of people just focus on that desire, but when you focus on the desire, you're focusing on the lack. You're focusing on, I don't have this thing right now. And it's an emptiness that you're trying to fill from the outside. And when you have this kind of emptiness, you're not in a situation where you're actually able to receive that gift from the outside. But the way to accurately manifest is to become the state, I already have this car, and you feel the happiness. And because you already have that state of fulfillment and satisfaction, the universe will naturally align itself with that image of the world that you have, because you've associated it with something that you already have. And you're going to act in the world through your subtle actions in a state that I already have this thing. And then because of that, the situations to make that happen are going to come into your life a lot faster. And
I've got a physical explanation for that too, that I think may be very interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, let me just finish this thought, and then I'd love to hear that, because it's very interesting. But yeah, and this also works with your body, with things that you want to manifest in your physical form. Let's say I want to manifest, let's say it's a little bit of a vain thing, but I want to manifest six-pack abs, right? And I want to look good on the beach this summer, and I want to be in my most healthy state, which is also good. I mean, it doesn't mean that you need to have a six-pack to be healthy, but maybe it's a goal that's going to really make you feel good. And it's okay to set goals like this as well. But if you go about your day feeling like, oh, I have to do all this work, it's going to take so much effort to do that, I'm going to have to go to the gym every day, you're not going to have that motivation to actually do it. But if you go about the day walking as if you already have those six-pack abs, you're going to feel the time, okay, now it's time to do a lot of ab exercises, you're going to be really excited about it because you're just building that strength even more inside, and it's going to build this positive energy that's going to push you forward and actually make you achieve your goal a lot quicker, and it's going to bring it in a way that is in alignment with the external circumstances as well. But I'd love to hear about how we do that in an actual physiological sense. It's very interesting.
Yeah, not just physical also. I feel like what most people don't say about manifesting is that, and this is something I recently realized by also manifesting in my own way, and I host events in which I teach people how to manifest. And really what we are in every possible sense, from the physiological to the psychological way, we are sponges. Everything in the universe is like a sponge. And that's why the universe is its own sponge and is expanding, right? Because what we are, our DNA is a sponge. Our DNA is made in a way that for its own existence, it attracts molecules to it. And so because it attracts molecule to it, then it creates the cell that then replicates the DNA. So it's a sponge in the sense that like it's perpetuate itself like this. So we are sponges in the sense that once you reach that level of being like, okay, I think I already have these things. So you're becoming that sponge already big. Let's say you think you already have a house or you already have a job, right? So now you are this person that is much bigger because now you have a house in your aura, you have a car in your aura, you have a dog, you have a job, you have all of these things, right? So you are physically, your field of awareness, your electromagnetic field is much bigger because it contains all of these things, right? Psychologically, you have more space in your brain because you have space for all of these things, but you don't actually have them. Like you think you already have it, but you don't. And so what you are is a sponge with a lot of empty pores that have the potential to attract those things. Because a sponge, what is a sponge? A sponge is a material that has pores that already are supposed to have a certain shape, but because they're empty, they attract the fluid and the things that they need to attract for them to be able to be full and to allow the sponge to have the full shape it's supposed to have. And so once you think, when you manifest, what you're actually doing is you're basically creating that sponge already. And so at that point, it's not even an alignment, I feel. It's really that the universe is the environment in which we are, and all the things that are in the universe, houses, jobs, people, friends, all these things are already here. But if we are small, if we are small sponges who don't have space for those things, right? Then how can you even attract those things if you want to? And instead, if you become a sponge in which you have those things, and let me give you a practical example of this, such as, let's say you think you want to have a relationship, right? So, and you think, I already have this relationship. Now, maybe you don't have a relationship because you don't dedicate time to dating or to even have a partner, right? And so if suddenly you're like, let's pretend, let's, act as if I already have a relationship, then you're going to have to make space because that's how a person who already has a relationship acts. And by doing that, you're becoming the person who is capable of actually hosting a relationship in their life. And by doing that, then you're going to be able to attract the relationship, right? Because before you were really repulsing it.
Like attracts like.
Yeah, you would, not even that, but like you repulse things because you don't have space for them. And instead, once you become the sponge that has the empty pore for that thing is going to come to you. You just have to go in the right place where that thing is so that that thing can come into your life. But you already have the pore, right? So a person with a house behaves in a different way as compared to a person who doesn't have a house. A person with a job, like we behave in different ways based on the fact that we have or don't have certain things. A person who has abs behaves in a different way than a person. So someone that has abs, a six-pack, it's someone who works out daily, right? You don't have abs if you don't work out daily. This is a myth, right? And so those two people, that person that has abs and the person that doesn't have abs, are two different people because they have two different habits. So in the time, and it's funny because I did that in my time. Like I used to not with the abs though, with my ass. So what I did, I would be running and I will be portraying me running towards me with the butt I wanted, in a sense. And I never really had issues with my butt. However, it's always good to improve yourself, right? And so like I really wanted that. And so I would run because I didn't like running at the beginning. So I would run thinking, that is me, right? I'm running towards that. And by doing that, I'm just really embodying the person that has a good butt. Because if you run all day, every day, then you're gonna, for sure, 100%, your muscles are going to improve. And so that is to say that really, this is what manifestation really is about. It's about changing yourself and becoming the sponge that has already the shape, that already has those things, so that those things come to you, because a sponge has a potential energy to attract things. A sponge is something that already has tension until it receives those things. Like a sponge gets to its resting state when it's full, because until it gets full, it's trying to attract and suck in things. Really, like it's a physical strength that we exercise on the outside.
Yeah, it's about really becoming the person you want to be. And you can see this with any person that's actually achieved a lot of success in their life. It's the kind of thing where, let's say you're trying to start a business and the first business fails, it doesn't work out. And maybe you invested, a couple tens of thousands of dollars into that, and it took you a year or two, and then it failed, and you didn't have any outcome of that you liked. Someone who's successful, they're not going to give up at that point. They're going to say, okay, what can I do next? How can I learn from what I just did? And how can I apply that to something new that's going to also have a chance of succeeding? Whereas a lot of people instead would feel defeated, and they would say, okay, clearly I'm not a business person. I'm going to go back to working a 9-to-5 office job. But that's not the behavior of someone who's successful. Someone who's successful, they get knocked down 10 times, they get up 11 times, And this is how you have to be if you want to achieve any goal. And it's the same thing with something physical. It's the same thing with something health related. Just because you don't see the results right away, just because you don't reap the rewards of that manifestation right away, doesn't mean that you won't in the future. And the key is to keep believing. And it's also interesting because I noticed sometimes the universe really tests you in these circumstances where it's like, how much do you really want this? I'm gonna knock you down 3 or 4 times and see if you still want to get back up afterwards. Then you can have the reward of the thing that you actually wanted. But if you don't have that perseverance, if you don't have that stamina and that really belief, that faith in yourself and that faith in your power to manifest things, to say, I know that I'm successful. In my core, I am a businessman. I'm successful. I'm going to make this happen. And if you don't have that real strength of mind and strength of heart, you're not going to succeed. And there's obviously circumstances where you could get incredibly lucky. This is not most people. And this is not something that you should mirror yourself after. I mean, there's a lot of people that have a lot of things coming into this life. Maybe they have, really rich parents. They don't have to try as hard. They have a lot of things that come to them naturally. 95 to 99% of us are not in those circumstances.
And even those who are, oftentimes they lose everything they have because they are not the sponge that has those things.
And oftentimes also they have, maybe their parent was someone who was successful and they had to build that stuff up themselves. So they had that positive role model of someone who they've seen fail and keep trying and succeed. And that's really important also to find those role models, because it's like a real life success story where you can you take the energy that they've accumulated through all of their trials and tribulations and you apply it to yourself and you say, okay, like this is all the hardships this first person faced, and they kept going, they kept trying, they didn't give up when they lost everything these 10 times. They got up that 11th time, and then that 11th time they got the $10 million business, and then they worked at it for 10 years and sold it for $100 million, and then now they have a kid who's in your position. And obviously that's a different situation than what you're in, but you can still use that person as a role model. I mean, a lot of these people write books, a lot of these people give talks, have lectures, and it doesn't have to be just related to business either. A lot of these things you can apply in a spiritual sense as well, or people that have, used the power of the placebo effect to heal themselves is another way we can apply this, where you can read these stories. Okay, this person, did all of this deep cleansing, healing work on themselves. Let's say they had maybe stomach cancer and they took time there. Okay, I'm committed to my healing. I'm going to do all that things I can do, both in terms of like taking the right herbs, doing the right meditations, going to the right energy healers, all of these things. They did all of those things, and they believed, most of all, they believed in their possibility that they could heal themselves, because that's really what all these things are doing. They're helping you. They're giving you the cues to heal yourself, because we are the ones that heal ourselves. The external world can help us, can support us, and give us those kind of pushes, those little cues to help us do that. But really, we're the ones doing the work when it comes down to it. And you can read those stories and you can say, wow, it's actually possible. And it's something that seems like a miracle if you're not living in that life, if you're just seeing it from the outside. But if you're living in that life, you start to realize, no, this is the only way that it could have actually happened, because it was my belief from the beginning, and I had no doubts. I knew that this was going to happen. And that state of deep knowing, that state of intention, you build that state also through your continuous effort, through your continuous trials and tribulations, through going through the hardships, through failing, and still having that belief and still coming back. And even if it's hard to believe it sometimes, to give yourself that faith and that hope that this is possible, and this is not even, it's more than possible, it is my reality. Not giving up in that state. That's where you get the most boost of a power, where you're put in the worst possible situation and it doesn't sink you. It keeps you, it gives you that extra, even 10 times boost when you really, really need it. When you say, okay, I know things are so bad right now, but I'm not giving up. That's usually where the turning point happens. When you hit that rock bottom, you start to see the positive direction of momentum after that. And that's the thing. Like, we need to keep that faith, because that's how we heal ourselves. That's how we impact the world. So with that placebo effect of knowing that it is possible, and even in a Western scientific framework, is really powerful, because it gives you the tools. If you, maybe you're someone who's a little bit newer to the spiritual traditions, and you don't have as many case studies you can look at from saying, okay, I have this friend who, healed their stomach cancer through intense energy work, or, I was going back to the business example, I have this friend who's a businessman and he really believed in himself and he did all his affirmations every day. He made his vision boards and he had that company. And maybe you don't have that, but you can still look at the very scientific, all of the papers that exist in our scientific literature showing the power of the placebo effect. And now knowing what you know from what we're telling you right now, that you can apply this in any aspect of your life, knowing that this is not something that's just backed by the spiritual traditions. This is backed by Western science. Even if they're not interpreting it in exactly the right way they should be, this is something that is so credible that you should believe in it. And it will empower you to change your life in the ways that you really need to, and the ways that you really want to as well.
And these, all the things we're saying are all placebo effect, in the sense that ultimately what is the placebo effect, not in the Western science sense, but like in the actual biological and physical sense, right? It's the capability of knowing that there is a path you can walk towards where you're full, right? That's once you understand that, then you have faith that, like, it's the same thing as a sponge, right? It's always the same thing, in the sense, how big is your sponge? How healthy is your sponge? And what shape does it have, right? So whatever sponge you think you are or you want to be, you can become it. You can become it, and you can become healthy, you can become successful. And that's the placebo effect. That's the power of your mind, in which you can visualize where you want to go, what intentions you want to have, what directions you want to go towards. Now your brain is going to do that, your body is going to do that, as long as you really focus on it. I met a lady that was telling me she was from Vietnam, and she was in a very poor situation, and she had kids, and she was like, I thought I had to go to the United States and I had to win a green card and I had to take my kids there. She said that she told me she wrote every single day on a piece of paper, I'm gonna win a green card, I'm gonna go to the United States with my kids, I'm gonna be successful. This lady has played the green card lottery every year for 15 years. For 15 years, she has written down, I am gonna win a green card, I'm gonna go with my kids to the United States, I'm gonna be successful. This woman is today in the United States with her kids, and she's a successful chef. But it took her 15 years. It took her 15 years of trial and error and of writing every single day, I'm going to do that, this is going to happen. But it happened. So if you, reality is that it's all about persistence, because yes, probability is a real thing in our universe, in the sense that things, are sometimes random, just likelihood that things happen. If you're in the right situation, things happen. If you're not, they don't happen. But if she would have not played the lottery at all for 15 years, she had zero chances, right? So the fact that she wrote every day, she tried every day, that made her behave in a completely different way. Because if you know that this is going to happen, if you have faith that you're going to heal, you're going to behave in a different way. And I'll give you another example. I remember my mother-in-law did something very interesting before my marriage. So I had to have the wedding, and she was like, I'm going to lose weight before the wedding. And 6 months prior to the wedding, she's like, I'm going to lose weight. And then she started not losing weight because she started eating as usual, right? So she wasn't really trying to manifest. She was hoping that she was losing weight. She was going to lose weight without actually trying to manifest it. And so then she realized, I'm not losing weight. And actually, because she was probably using the opposite kind of affirmations, because affirmations are very important. The right affirmation are very important because, for example, in neurolinguistic programming, it's very well known that our brain doesn't understand the don't. So, for example, if you tell to your brain, don't eat too much, the only thing your brain understands is eat too much. Yeah, because your brain can only focus on whatever thought you give it, not on the don't do it or don't do it, right? And so if you tell your brain, and you can do this exercise right now, if you tell to your brain, focus on all the red things in the room right now, you're gonna immediately see that all the red things are gonna
That's the handkerchief over there.
Yeah. And if you tell your brain, don't focus on all the red things in the room, it's gonna be
the handkerchief right there. I tried.
It's the same exact thing. So the only way of actually going towards a different direction is to give to your brain a different direction. So if you tell your brain, don't eat too much, you're gonna eat as usual and probably even more, even because you're gonna start being like bothered by this idea that you have to not eat too much. Instead, if you tell your brain, I want to eat healthy, that's a completely different affirmation. I want to eat a lower amount of food. So it's a completely different affirmation. So what happened was that she probably gave to herself the wrong affirmations. So she started gaining weight. And so 6 months prior, she was like, I'm going to lose weight. And then 4 months prior, she's like, but I'm actually gaining weight. So at this point, it's too late to lose weight. She started eating more, and she got to the wedding that she weighed more than 6 months prior, because she was not trying to manifest. She was just trying to avoid gaining weight.
Right.
So you really need to manifest. You really need to understand where you're headed and when you want to go. And this is why all these like sponge idea and how to use to boost your placebo effect come in handy right now.
Yeah.
So positive affirmations on the walls, for example, can be so powerful. Like if you surround yourself, imagine like you want to be like, okay, I want to be a successful entrepreneur, right? So for you to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to embody being a successful entrepreneur. So you need to, first of all, understand how different is a successful entrepreneur from my current self. What do we do different? Maybe we have different habits. Maybe we surround ourselves with different kinds of people. Maybe we eat different things, and so if you start implementing all of those things are going to drag you towards your new goal.
Exactly.
Because they're going to create the borders of your new sponge. And then you just have to keep walking and things are going to come to you automatically, because obviously if you eat as an entrepreneur eats, you're going to develop a different mindset. If you do the same things that an entrepreneur does, you're going to develop a different skills, different.
Yeah, and you're going to put yourself in the right position to succeed. Also, that's also an important thing. You do need to also you need to take physical actions. You need to do those things that will make your dream a possible reality. If your friend hadn't done the lottery to win the green card every year, she could not have done it. 0% chance.
Yeah.
But again, if you set that new boundaries of your sponge, then you're going to be dragged into that, because you're going to be put in the place where, you go to the little coffee shop with health food, and you meet other entrepreneurs and you make the right connections, because you're putting yourself in that place. And another really important thing with affirmations, it's really true what you said. Thank you for sharing that, because that's something that people really don't understand unless it's not obvious. You need to do it in a way where you're setting positive affirmations. Negative affirmations are never the way to go. Another really important thing is you set your affirmations in the present, not in the future, but in the present. And the two most powerful words for this are I am. So you don't say I want to be an entrepreneur. You don't say in 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to have a successful business. You say, I am a successful entrepreneur. I have a successful business. I am a successful business owner. And that brings it into this moment. And again, it can be really hard to look at, because we're locked in this experience of time where we think that the past, present, and future are separate things. Really, it's only the present. And when you set that expectation in the future, you say, in the future, I'm going to become this. The future is always going to be ahead of you. It's going to be always in the future. So you're never going to get to that goal. But if you say, I am that now, it's going to bring so much more power into this present moment. You say, okay, if I am this entrepreneur, then what am I doing right now? And it's going to make you do the things that successful entrepreneur version of yourself will do in this present moment. And yeah, you can also use different things for the different chakras when you're manifesting different things related to each of the chakras. And we can get into that later. There's different key, like you can call it like affirmation prefixes.
So yeah, so like because also during the when you do these use these affirmations in which you really say I am this thing, right? When you know, like what people don't understand is that we are very consistent. Everything in the universe is consistent with its own identity. All right, and so if you say I am a lion, look, you're gonna behave very different than if you say I'm a sheep. I really promise to you, like your behavior is gonna be completely different. And so if you tell yourself, I'm healthy, I've healed, I've healed. Someone who has healed from cancer, for example, is someone who has hope, someone who is happy, someone who smiles, someone who goes in the sun and runs, right? And someone who has not healed from cancer and he thinks that cancer is gonna kill him is someone who stays home all the time, who has no hope, who is depressed, who doesn't eat anymore, who doesn't stay, like maybe lays down all the time, and then he gets the muscles are atrophied, and so all of these habits have completely different effects on our body's capability of healing. And we go back again to how all these voluntary and involuntary leverages and buttons in our body can really affect us, because our muscles are really also endocrine organs, for example. So if we move our muscles, we produce cytokines, which are molecules that go in the circulation and go everywhere in our body and affects our whole body. Just by running, you can affect your whole body and make yourself healthier. But when people get very, diseases that are very lethal or very like they have a high probability given by doctors, maybe they're not even real, but they're told they have 6 months of life, right? Obviously, if you think you have 6 months of life, what you're gonna do is you're gonna bury yourself into junk food and at home all the time, or maybe drink a lot because you have 6 months to live, or have a lot of cigarettes because you have 6 months to live. Those things are gonna kill you, not the fact that you have 6 months to live, right? And so, really thinking instead, I am healthy, makes you completely change your habits, your way of behaving with people, and your mindset and your epigenome. So, what is the epigenome? So,
what is that?
It's a bad word? No, it's not. It's not a dirty word. So we have two main things in our DNA. One is the DNA, which is the genome, right? The DNA is the genome, which means it's the instructions needed for us to create ourselves, basically. And the epigenome is the way in which the DNA is utilized by the cells. And so the epigenome is really basically the DNA with all of its protein and factors attached, packed in a certain way so that the DNA is accessible in certain points and is not accessible in certain other points, and is certain genes are expressed, some other genes are suppressed. So that is the epigenome. The epigenome, while the genome is fixed throughout our life, other than for mutations that may happen with aging, but the epigenome instead is not fixed. It's actually different in all of our cell types, because the pancreas has a different epigenome, has the same exact DNA as your genitals, but has a completely different epigenome, because that's why these two cells are different. And in the same way, a cell that is aging has a completely different epigenome than a cell that is healthy and young. And so a cell that is depressed and is basically going into depression mode is different than a cell that is healing. And so if you tell yourself that you're healthy, that you want to heal, your entire vibration, your entire epigenome changes. And this is scientifically demonstrated. It's not something that, some philosophers is saying. This is scientifically demonstrated that with meditation and affirmations, you can completely change your epigenome, which means that your cells from the inside out are going to start healing themselves. So imagine having cancer and focusing the attention on your body and telling your body, fight against this cancer. Make sure that you get rid of it, that you heal it, that you shrink it, and that you drain it out of my body so that I'm healthy again. It's going to happen, because that's really what you need to do, is to work on your immune system. So it's important to know how our body works, and that's why studying biology, it's so important. And we all should study biology in school. I don't know how much biology you guys study here in the United States, but I feel like we all should study biology and physiology, because that's the main way in which you understand where your organs are, how your body works, and what kind of part of your body, for example, the immune system is mostly produced in our bones, in our long bones. And so if you focus your attention there, and then on your lymph nodes and on your thigh, like all the different parts of your body where the immune system goes, then you can tell your cells, you know, please, girls, guys, behave well and go fight the infection, go fight the cancer that is attacking me. So we can affect our epigenome through affirmations, through this visualization is so important. And I know that sometimes it sounds like kind of silly to make vision boards, especially to people of a certain age, because it's like, it's a thing for kids, vision boards. I'm already a very settled person. I don't need vision boards. Not true, because you can use visions in any possible way. It's like again, this sponge, right? You can only head towards a direction that in a sense. Seneca, the philosopher, used to say, there is no favorable wind for a sailor who doesn't know where he's headed. And so that means that if you don't have a picture of how you look like when you're healthy, when you're healed, and what kind of things you do when you're healthy, how can you head there? How can you actually go in that direction? So it's important to visualize, not just necessarily in writing, like you don't need to necessarily draw or make an actual vision board, which is very powerful, however, but you can also do it in your own mind and have this vision of how you are going to be when you're healthy, how you're supposed to be in the present if you're healthy, how is a person who is healthy being. And once you do that, then you start working towards it, even if you don't realize you're going to do that, because a healthy person behaves in a completely different way than an unhealthy one. And so just that, the affirmations you're talking about, it's the most powerful thing. And you can print or write affirmations that you can put on your walls, because your house and the place where you live in is a direct extension of yourself, of your mind. And so if you wake up every morning and if you find in your home healthy food, then affirmations that tell you how healthy you are, and pictures that show you how beautiful nature is and of the sun and light. If you have all of these things and you surround yourself with all of these things, they are going to become like things that drag you towards the self that you're going to be in the future. The same thing that we said at the beginning. What direction you're going towards is what your next present will look like. And so if you give time to those things, if you give to yourself cues, which are things you want to actualize in the future, you're just going to give time to those things and you're going to become those things in the next present. And maybe it's going to take years sometimes, but it's just mathematics. Right. You're just going to get there.
That's where the perseverance comes in. And yeah, having also for visualization as opposed to affirmations, having physical pictures of things can be really valuable. And that's where, the tool of a vision board comes in. You say, okay, I want this in my life. And it also really makes you think, okay, what do I actually want? Because a lot of times people think, oh, I want one specific thing, but they don't make a whole picture of what their life is going to look like. And so when you have that vision board, you have the actual pictures of every aspect of your life. You say, this is the kind of house that I want. This is the kind of job that I want. This is the kind of car I want to drive. This is the kind of partner, girlfriend, boyfriend that I want to have, wife I want to have. And you have all of those things, then you have a complete picture of your life. And another really important thing in terms of manifestation with this kind of visualizing technique, which you can also do mentally. You don't have to have a physical board. It can be a really helpful tool for people, but you can also do it where you kind of have a mental movie that you have in your head. But a really important way to accentuate the power of this is to focus on emotions. So you feel the emotions that you have when you already achieve these things, and you feel the success, you feel the accomplishment, you feel the happiness, the joy, the contentment, the feelings of fulfillment that you have when you've achieved the things that you want to achieve. And you feel those emotions inside of yourself, and you really try to resonate with those emotions, because our emotions are our most powerful driving force in the world. And when we have those powerful emotions saying, I have achieved that thing, that's how you make the most strong boundary on that sponge on the outside, because you're creating an emotional frequency that's going to pull you very strongly towards that goal. And it's going to set you up to feel those emotions for real, because you're also practicing feeling those emotions, right? And when you're practicing feeling them, let's say even if it does take 10, 15 years to achieve those goals, all of the practice you're putting into those feeling those emotions is going to bring them out in your life more. You're going to feel the success of the little things that go right, even if it's not the big picture all coming true together. You're going to feel the satisfaction because you're training your brain in the sense that, like, you train your muscles in the gym. You're training your brain, you're training your emotions to be happy and to feel success and to feel gratitude and to feel all of these things. And those things are what's going to drive you, even if they don't end up getting you to your goal in the most expeditious way, in the really fast way. They're going to make the path a lot happier because they're going to make you in a state where you do enjoy the little things because you're training to feel things that way. You're training the positive emotions. You're training yourself to be in that positive state all the time, which is also going to make the universe feel like a much better place. And it's going to also, it will make the things come to you more quickly because it's going to put you in a state where you have more energy. When you're positive, you actually have a lot more energy than when you're feeling negative. So you're going to have a lot more energy to go out and put yourself in the right places, to do the things that you need to do to achieve those goals. But then you're also going to enjoy the time doing it more, which is really the point of life, right? Like if you're always thinking about the end goal and you're not going to be happy until you get there, you're never going to be happy because you're never going to fully 100% achieve exactly what you want to achieve. Life is complicated. You have different things that come up, and the picture that you created, it might be like 95% of what you think it's going to be, but there's always going to be little differences. And if you let those little differences hold you back from that happiness, and if you don't enjoy the path to getting to that 95% vision, you're going to be sad for most of your life. And that's not the kind of life that we want to live. We want to live happy lives where we can impact other people. We can spread the light and the happiness that we have inside. So when you train yourself through visualizing and sitting with those positive affirmations, those positive feelings, and what I really like to do is like, I make a mental movie of a scene, maybe a day in my perfect future life where I go through the day and I feel the emotions of all the things that I'm doing. And then at the end of that visualization, I visualize gathering all that energy into my heart and I hold it in my heart and I say, okay, I'm going to live my life today with these emotions in my heart and let them shine out from my heart to the world. And I really think that that's a beautiful way to live, no matter if the things come true or not. It's like almost besides the point at that point. Obviously, I still want them to happen, but it's making me happy in the moment. And that's really the thing that we should all be striving for.
Yeah, I agree. And like, absolutely, I actually have it on my wall. I have a wall of affirmations that I use to, especially to go through hard times. Like, I have a whole wall in which I put the affirmations that I need to have for me to go in the direction that I want. And one of those is the happiness is not a station you arrive at, but it's a manner of traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is, right? It's like really you want to be happy all the time. And it's very powerful what you're saying of like really having feeling the emotions that you have of being the full sponge, as we said, right? Being full and being full of the things that you need to get for you to feel full. Feeling that emotion already is what really drags you towards actualizing those things, and that's really what the placebo effect is about. It's about being able to have the intention and to feel the feeling, the expectation. You can the only way of actually feeding the expectation in our brain, in neurobiologically speaking, is by giving it the feeling of how it feels like when you have achieved something. So you feel happy and good because you overcome a certain struggle in your life or because you have healed from a certain issue. And so because you feel good, that then you have the expectation that once you heal, you're gonna feel good. Like me running towards my butt, right? Like you have the expectation, but because you have that expectation and you feel, oh, I'm gonna feel so much happier if I reach that goal. Why would I not run for it? Why would I not do things for it? I feel so much better, right? And so by while you're doing it and you're visualizing, you're also feeling the same feeling at all times. And imagine having to feel sad all the time for you to be able to reach a goal. You will never be able to reach it because you're gonna start being depressed, right? And instead, if you're feeding your positive feelings, then you're gonna be more motivated, you're gonna have more energy, you're gonna create this whole electromagnetic field around you that really feeds and feeds and feeds and grows stronger so that you can have more of this energy to dedicate into the present, to the next present, and to put in the direction that you want, and using the cues that you give to yourself, which can be people in your life, can be intentions, can be decisions that you make, can be like, never gonna go back and I'm gonna only move forward from this. I want to heal, and so I don't want to become the unhealthy person I was before. I want to become healthier. I want to be this. I want to be that. So always positive affirmations with that, non-negative, right? So I want to do all of these things, and I am all of these things already. So once you anchor yourself, That's your placebo effect. And you can use it for anything. The placebo effect is ultimately your inner capability of manifesting anything from health to success to relationships to love to anything. It's your capability of deciding voluntarily where to put your intentions, all these pickets that you put around that are the borders of your sponge, and decide, okay, this is how big I am. This is how big I actually am. I just have to walk towards it and to put myself in the right circumstances so that I am allowed and I have the possibility, the opportunity to drag all of these things, to pull, I like the word pull that you use, to pull all of these things towards me from the world around me. And so once you understand that, then you become invincible. You can do really anything. You can really do anything.
Yeah, and if you guys are interested, I have a really beautiful meditation sequence that I teach, which basically is going to bring you through all the steps you need to really get in the right headspace to perfectly manifest your future. And it goes through steps from like grounding, connecting to your inner energy centers, to love, to gratitude, all of these things building up to that perfect future visualization. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'm on Instagram at Robie Newman-Paris, and you can also reach out to Nancy.
Yes, on 360holistic.coach on Instagram or 360holisticcoach.com on my website. And I also host events for actualization, and I also use meditation as a way to heal, but also to manifest in different kinds of ways.
Yeah.
We have very different methods, so you may definitely resonate with completely different ways.
You can try us both and see which one you like better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, don't forget about the gua sha and how nice it feels to have it on your face.
Yes, it
and we'll have a link for this down in the description.
It's so cold. I love the feeling. And seriously, like, he heals you. So like, it's crazy how your face can become really like depuffed from the morning when you use it. And I didn't use it today, so don't look at that. But really, really, really works. So you can use it daily, like on the couch, or like, you don't need to actually spend a lot of time on it. It's just 2, 3, 4 minutes per day. You just do it, and it really works. Let me know.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode.
Thank you.
I hope that you learned from both the scientific and the spiritual perspective just the power that you can use the placebo effect to change your life and manifest the perfect future for yourself. So thank you. And as always, we're open to any feedback. So use the comment section below if you're on YouTube, or the I'm not sure what it's called on Spotify, but the comment section, whatever it is, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Podcasts. Send us feedback. If you are someone, or you know someone who you think would be a good fit for an interview on our podcast, also please reach out. We're always open to finding new people to interview that can give us a new perspective or have certain expertise in any of the fields related to anything that we talk about in our podcast. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.